Hi, everybody. It's Professor Snart checking in as we transition out of our first unit in our online creative writing course and into our second. So it's Thursday morning, January 25th, when I'm recording this. So today is the due date for the main work in Unit 1. So I'm just going to visit our due dates page here. Remind you of our double due date system. So for most units, we'll have two due dates. The first for any main work, like most of the work for any of the units, and then a kind of gap for people to access that work and look at other classmates' work, and then do replies. So again, the main work in our introductions unit is going to be due this Thursday, January 25th, technically the very end of the day. But as I mentioned before, I'm encouraging people to make sure you're getting in there and doing work well in advance of the due date. And then we have this time to do replies. But of course, if you're finished your work and you're into the discussion board on a Thursday or Friday, and enough people have posted their work, you can obviously finish up these replies well before that due date. So it's not like you have to wait until those times to actually complete the work. And what you might find then as we transition, so we've sort of finished up this stuff, and now you have potentially have these replies to do, you might also start the work here. So you're kind of overlapping potentially between finishing up Unit 1 and getting into Unit 2. You don't have to do it that way by any means, but you might find that for some weeks, there's a little bit of that overlap. Okay, so just a quick reminder then. Unit 1 was mostly just about getting to know your classmates, getting a kind of feel for how the course is set up, where the buttons are to click and all that kind of stuff. And also how in most of our units, we have this setup where the assignment is explained in an embedded document that you'll scroll through. These are easy for me to edit. I can include screenshots really easily, et cetera, et cetera. They just look kind of clean in there. But the tool within Blackboard that we use is the discussion board. And I find it really frustrating that it's actually hard in the student view to see that these are clickable, like Unit 1, creating your English, et cetera, et cetera. In my editing view, I can see it's underlined, and of course I kind of know that it's clickable. So it's easy to find once you know it's there. Sounds obvious enough. But if you don't know where to look, right, for either this icon or that this is clickable, it can be hard to actually find how to get the discussion board. So we have our assignment. We actually work for the assignment in Google Sites, building our portfolio and an initial like About Me or Introductions page. So that's what all this walks us through. And then we kind of come back into Blackboard to post the URL so we can visit each other's portfolios. And also remember that there is that reply component where after you've done your own and posted it, visit a few classmates, and then again, using the discussion board, not the Google Sites again, provide a reply to whatever people wrote in their About Me page. And again, it's pretty informal, right? It's not really writing related per se. So you might find someone with a similar hobby, an interesting career track, interesting travel that they've done, whatever it happens to be. So not super demanding work. As we get into our course, I'm really just concerned at this point that we have the opportunity to set up our portfolio, which we'll use throughout the term, to meet each other, because it's important to me to develop that sense of class community, but also just for students to have time to get a feel for how the class is laid out, how the due dates work, how the various digital tools that we use kind of fit together, and all that kind of stuff. I don't want to have people overwhelmed with readings or with content or all that as we just get situated. As we get into Unit 2, though, and again, I'll return to our due dates tab here. So we're looking at Unit 2 now, thinking a little bit more about questions of writing and what our own compulsions are to write or interests in writing are. We have our main due date then of that Thursday, and then our turnaround for reply. So kind of the same pattern that we'll get into. Okay. So Unit 2, not really a writing unit per se. We're doing some writing, but we're not really talking about the craft of writing directly yet, or at least we're not applying that. We're just sort of telling our own story about why we write, what our interests are, what our motivations are, what our experiences are, even what our fears are, or what gets in the way of us writing or writing effectively. Okay. So I'm going to ask that you look at the so-called rules, quote unquote here, of creative writing. It's just a slideshow. There's little narrated pieces that you'll want to listen to. The audio isn't that great. It's just the way that I think it tries to keep the file size a little bit lower so the audio is not super terrific. But I think you'll get the idea of the main points that I'm trying to communicate there. There's a really brief quiz, just again, low point value. You can have the thing open while you're doing the quiz. You're not meant to memorize these things, but it is a good opportunity to sort of review and just make sure that you're sort of getting the gist of what those rules are. Other than this quiz, I'll never test you on the rules again, but of course, as I look at your writing, or as you look at the writing of your classmates as we move forward, we do want to see an effort to actually apply these rules. And that's really where writing becomes most enjoyable, but also most challenging, because we can talk about the theory of it easily enough. We can look at diagrams on a textbook and read the how-tos, but it's really like doing it where we learn what works, what's hard to do, what's easy to do, what we already do, things that we never thought that we should do. So right in the application is really where we get our money's worth. Okay, so there's a couple of different assignments here. This Unit 2/3, I'm going to pop into first because it's the most straightforward. This is going to set us up actually for something we'll do in Unit 3. That's why it has that 2-3 there. Your job is just to use this discussion board to post a writing prompt. And again, I'm inviting you just to Google something. Normally, I wouldn't suggest this as a great way of approaching a so-called research project. But you're just looking for a writing prompt, creative writing, short story specifically. So we don't want something about like a, I don't know, research essay or whatever. Here's a really cheesy one, it could be less verbatim words that you're prompting someone to use, and more just one of these kind of ideas to get you going. Tell us where you got the prompt. And again, try to pick one that's actually doable in the time frame that we've got. So you don't want something that's going to lead someone into this like Game of Thrones-ish massive narrative with thousands of characters and all this stuff going on. So that's pretty straightforward to do. It's listed second in our unit here, but you could do it first and get it out of the way, and we'll return to it in Unit 3. Okay, the main work here, though, is the Why I Write assignment. So again, it's embedded as a document that you're going to want to scroll through. It's going to have us going back to our portfolio pages that we created in Unit 1. Simply go to sites.google.com/new to find your site. Again, to edit it, just click on it. And then we're going to create a new page, which is what this is walking you through. And then there's a couple of different options here. The first thing is the Why I Write is actually the title of a national writing project site on YouTube and a whole kind of like project that they've started, which, as you can imagine, has tons and tons of people, some famous, some just doing it for fun, going on YouTube and talking about why they write. And again, it's interesting to read or to watch, listen to the work of those published authors because, not because that's what we aspire to be necessarily, but especially for those that are working at writing as a profession, they really have to think about why they're writing and how they're working as writers. So those are kind of the interesting ones. You'll find tons to look at. Flip through a couple, find one that seems interesting, and watch a few of them. You'll get a flavor for it really, pretty quickly. Okay, so now you're going to create this new page on your portfolio site, title it like Why I Write, something like this, and then either write your own kind of essay here along the lines of what you'll hear people talking us through in the YouTube channel, or if you want to get really ambitious, and I'd be happy to help with the technical side, record your own Why I Write video. Keeping in mind that you don't have to post it to YouTube. It's not really public, even if it's on your website, right? Those are really just shared within our class. But it's really cool actually to see people on the screen talking to us rather than just sort of writing at us. And because we're working on the web, I would suggest that even if you write the essay, really try to include more than just kind of blank text on the page. Make it more interesting. Invest a little time in it. But you're really just talking about like why I write. It's a pretty open-ended question, but it'll be interesting to see all of the various things people have to say, especially in reference back to those videos. Okay, then once you're done, post the URL to your portfolio page again, or just the Why I Write page. Review what your classmates have had to say, and then using the discussion board here, reply to at least 4 other of those student posts, or the Why I Write web pages that people have built. All right, be in touch with any questions, and I'll talk with everybody soon.